growing weary of running from room to room, practicing one-tooth insurance-driven dentistry? Then stay tuned for the latest episode of The Lionhearted, where Dr. Stephen Rasner will hand you the blueprint for what many call the gold standard of general practice dentistry.
Hi everyone, Dr. Steve Rasner here. Welcome to another episode of The Lionhearted. And by the way, if I never explained it before, which I probably did, I named it The Lionhearted because these podcasts are dedicated to the like-minded colleagues of mine around the world in dental school who want to not give up the dream, because you don't have to, of a fee-for-service practice. And today, unlike 38 years ago, unlike even 20 years ago, it really requires you to be a warrior, a lion-hearted warrior, because you can't give in, because it's too worth it to do this way. So that's what the name came from. So here I am now. I'm not even into 2 months of doing these podcasts. I did an early test one back in August or September. And I guess I'm going to keep doing them because I get a lot of feedback now from you guys, and it's worthy. It feels good to feel like I'm helping some of you. And I never thought that I would reach out to dental students, and so I've been giving and of course practicing dentist and people that know me and people who don't know me yet. These are all dedicated towards sound principles, according to me, that have worked for a very long time. So here I am on a Friday night at 6:30. That's how exciting my life must be. And I'm doing another podcast before I go out, actually. So I like to start by giving you my email address. That would be drrasner@aol.com. No period, drrasner@aol. I'm giving you that because lots of you are beginning to write to me for things I promise you, and I'm pretty certain you're all getting them because of my trusty assistant, Beth, who's been with me for quite some time. So I'm coming off another outrageously great week. When I say outrageous, I mean well over 6 digits of collections on a early January, mid-January of the new year. And I don't tell you that to brag, for God's sakes. I'm telling you that because that's the thing, man. What I'm teaching you works. I mean, I'm 64-year-old guy, 64 years old, and still pretty much loving what I do. A little harder to do it than it used to be, harder to have the stamina to go really late, past, into the, I don't work any evenings or anything like that. In case you're wondering, I work Monday through Thursday, pretty much work 9 to 4:30 or 5. I did not always do that. And I don't want you to think you don't have, that you can just come out of the gate and, have those kind of hours, because you can't. What's going to happen is you have to pay dues. And that means doing whatever you have to do in the beginning to let people know that you exist. I work nights, Saturdays. I've said this, I think, in earlier podcasts, but those of you that are in dental school, those of you that are just starting out, think of it as if you were a physician and you're in one of those residencies that require, 80 hours a week. We end up in a much better position than they do. We don't have to be on call, really, and it's a quite substantially, in my opinion, a better quality of life in terms of just relative being able to live life easily more on your own terms. And so, but you got to get to that, and you got to be willing to do things to get to that, which even includes, and I worked 3 jobs, and my dad, I worked for my father my first year out of dental school. In addition to my father, I worked for 3 other dentists, and I think that's a good idea because it gave me multiple sources to pull from to see how things are done. But this is what I want to talk about in this podcast tonight. It's really 3 things. I want to tie up some loose ends that I realize I might have left from prior podcast. I want to talk about how to get things done. Like, how do you get from where you're at right now and start implementing these ideas I keep giving you, or that you might hear at other courses and stuff. And then lastly, I want to talk about a really important concept on what I believe, what one clinician believes, motivates your team long term. Because I'm going to give you some do's and don'ts when it gets to that. But let's start with tying up loose ends real quick. I talked earlier, and sometimes I go back and I briefly listen to my podcast to see if, and I don't always complete my thoughts. That's the way I am. Sorry, but I mean well. But I talked a few podcasts ago about the 3 things you need to have a great week that will always work, and they are the following. You need new patients. Okay, period. So at some point we have to talk about marketing and what to do and what not to do. And I can only share with you my experiences. I have a tremendous in-office program of marketing that I've used for it's the most long-lasting, successful project I've ever done. Almost every other marketing avenue I've used, whether it be radio or magazines or whatever, the kick of that advertising campaign eventually waned and weakened. This one hasn't. You may want to write to me and ask me for my in-office referral program. It basically resides around me giving 25-hour visas, which you can't do in every state, but you can have alternatives. It may have to be a different way to thank people for referring people, but it's way beyond that. I got to tell you, it's powerful. I personally spend about somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000 a month on 25-hour gift cards, which means all those people were referred. And there is nothing better, and we all know this. My father said this, and my people that were probably saying this back in the 1800s. Word of mouth, of course, is the best source of a new patient or any new business, because there's something built in called cred, and you just can't you can't buy that. Well, maybe that's not true. I am buying it by getting paying them to tell somebody I'm worth it. But nobody's going to do that if they don't believe in you. So let's go back. You need new patients. You need new patients with need. I mean, sometimes I have patients that come in and they just don't need anything. I go over the 5 parameters I went over in some of the earlier podcasts on case presentation. The 5 parameters real quick is I examine their periodontium for health first, all teeth, missing teeth, occlusion, occlusal related issues, and 5 aesthetics. And yeah, I said 5 aesthetics. That's actually the last thing I look at. And if you really do diligence to those 5 concepts on the average patient that comes to you, and you're just sincere, and you're not looking for work, you're just really doing what I just said, and in a process that takes about an hour. And you can't always present, of course, on the first visit, but you often can. It's really hard not to find things, but sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just have these beautiful dentitions of patients that really wanted to come to me for years, and for whatever reason are finally making a switch. And it is what it is. I can tell you this on that same note. Young clinicians, those of you in dental school, the worst thing you can do when you get out or buy a new practice is try to convince the patient to replace number 30 or 1 missing tooth in a healthy dentition that has been missing for 20 plus years. Now, there's nothing wrong with bringing it up, but making it crystal clear that it's, an up to them type of situation when you approach that kind of issue. You have to kind of walk on very thin ice for a couple years to gain something that doesn't come quickly, called trust. And, we'll have to spend a lot more time on that. But so you need new patients with need. You need a clinician with a range of skills. You better believe when you're listening to me that one of the reasons I have these weeks I just alluded to, the week I just told you a minute ago that collected well over 6 digits. That's not treatment plan. It's collected in the office because I believe in getting paid up front for a multitude of reasons. And they're all ethical. It's got nothing to do with trying to put money in my bank. It's got everything to do with having patients completing the treatment that they start. It's really where it begins and ends for me. Everybody loses if they're on a payment plan and something comes up in their life. And I get it. It happens. That supersedes the importance of finishing their mouth, and then they're left half treated, and that's a lose-lose for everyone. But the skills that I got to treatment plan this week included multiple soft tissue grafts, which took a long time to train for, by the way. Naturally, by now I have an oral sedation heavy practice, so lots of these patients. I had a patient yesterday that came in. It was I don't mind telling you, it was a $12,000 case. That means it was more than that. That's what their out-of-pocket was. She was 39. She came with her. All the protocols that I display and go over with you on these podcasts were in play. She came in with her father. She's 39. She came in because she hadn't been to a dentist in many, many years. She was a teacher, by the way. This was not, this is a regular working, everyday person. Hadn't gone to a dentist in many, many years out of fear. Straight out of fear. Overcame her fear issues in less than 5 minutes, as will you if you use the protocol and get your permit to use the protocol that I use. Those of you in other countries, please write to me and I'll explain and send you literature on the sedation protocol I've used for 22 or 4 years. I've lost track. And I use it every single day, multiple times a day. I've never had one incident, awkward, I had to call 911 incident ever with this protocol. It seems to me to be the perfect level of sedation. And I use Benadryl, Atarax, Triazolam, and nitrous oxide. The nitrous oxide is in varying degrees. Sometimes it's all oxygen. Sometimes it's more nitrous, depending on their level. But I'll send their level of sedation. There's all kinds of protocols that go with it to keep you safe. But I've used that for many, many years. But this is a patient that I confidently looked at her and said, there's just going to be no problem with the fear thing. I'm going to tell you right now. And then I changed my approach on case presentation with her because I went right to that. Because again, all the protocols I share with you were in play, including getting a lot of information over the phone by my new patient coordinator, doing a mini dental history. Anything here that I'm saying that you don't remember, write to me. You'll get it in writing, or go back to an earlier podcast. I don't know which one has those things in it. But we do a mini dental history. We don't just, somebody's calling, I have a toothache. I can put you in at 2 o'clock on Thursday. That's not how it works. We're asking them questions about their mouth. It takes several minutes. We're bonding with them. We're letting them know we're doing a complete exam in my office. We're not just treating the one tooth. This patient came to me, by the way, because number 30 was swollen, or she was still swollen a little bit when she came to the office. Someone had put her on antibiotics, or maybe she's self-medicated. I don't remember. It had gone down, but I did a complete exam on her. She was missing 1 or 2 teeth, but she needed 2 root canals, several crowns, soft tissue therapy, several operative procedures. And, it was a done deal. And, a lot of the things I do in my office, now those weren't so extreme, but, and by the way, I don't even do, the clinician speaking to you with all the numbers I keep sharing with you, I don't even do orthodontics in my office. I do some extrusion sometimes, but it's not a big part of my office, of my procedures. And I still do those things, the kind of production that I've alluded to. And so that's what goes in. So you need a wide range of skills. And that's what begins. That's why you should ask me for my recommended residency. I have no agenda. Anybody that I recommend has nothing to do with personal relationships. They are often courses I've taken or respect that remains. And that's not always the case, by the way. Some clinicians, teachers change over the years and their principles change. And you can't take everybody, right? You can't take every course out there. But you're going to have to take a lot if you're going to develop a blueprint that allowed me to do the things I've been able to do for the last 38 years. So taking CE at a very extreme level is what allows you to develop a tremendous skill set range. You know, I mean, I still take tremendous CE. I'm taking a 4-day advanced bone grafting course. And I've had a lot of bone grafting courses from Mike Pico's down in Tampa, Florida. And I'm taking yet another one. It's the only course of his I've never taken it because it's 4 days. It's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then it's quite expensive as well. The price of it's not the problem for me. It's losing that much productivity in the office. So I'm, I walk my talk. The fourth thing you need, so I said new patients with need, clinicians with a wide range of skills, and new patients that have credit. At least where I live, that's important. Because in my area of the United States, it's a big deal for somebody to whip out a checkbook and write us a check for whatever they need. So when I talk about credit, there's 3 credit companies that you have to have on board in your office. And they will be Care Credit, which is like the Coca-Cola of patient credit in the United States. I realize those of you in Canada and Europe, I'm not going to pretend I know what companies you have there that do this, or if you have any. And you'd have to write to me, and I would give you my other recommendations, because I really believe in getting paid up front. As I've already said in this podcast, is a tremendous benefit to everyone. The second one is Green Sky, which is fairly new. I bet a lot of you don't know about Green Sky. And when you call them and Google them, you tell them you heard about them on this podcast. Not that I get anything for it, but I'm trying to get them to... Am I honest or what? I try to get them to support my lectures when I go on the road. And, that's how it works. But never would I ever recommend somebody I don't use or think would benefit you. Green Sky is important. And the third one's Lending Club. And I'm not really naming them in order of importance. You need them all. You know why? Because they use different credit sources. So if you only have one of them, you can absolutely get turned down by one of them and be approved for a significant patient financial loan by the other. So don't sell yourself short. Make sure you have more than one. And another thing is, most of the offices that I come in contact aren't great at the verbiage in using these programs, particularly Care Credit. And so it's not magic, like, oh, you have them in your office and all your patients want to use them. So again, you need to reach out to me, and I will refer you to my new patient coordinator, whose name is Michelle, who's only worked for me, by the way, 38 years. The first week in practice, I swear to you. And she used to lecture with me. She's very capable. On the circuit even, she's amazing. She's beyond capable. She's superwoman when it comes to dealing with people, knowing proper, body language, being a patient advocate. I mean, that's how I talk to them. When I am done the treatment plan with these patients, I am proud to say, listen, this is what's going to happen next. I'm going to refer you to Michelle, who took your phone call. And they all know who I'm talking about because she's that kind of person. So you got to have all this in play. And she's my patient advocate, and she's going to see if she can make this fit in your world. And I need it to fit comfortably for you. I don't want it to be the burden of monthly. I want you to feel good about doing this investment, about taking the leaps I've recommended to you today that are going to take me, whatever I tell them, 4 months, a year, 6 months. And I tell them what the outcome they can expect. And I have boxes of models and tons of photos. You know, I have a fiber, what's wrong with me? I have an optic camera in every one of my operatories. And I don't know if I've ever used it. And I'm not, this isn't a diss on cameras. I'm saying I don't even need that to get case acceptance. If you can't tell by now, I believe a lot of my case acceptance comes from being sincere. Because I won't hesitate in a New York second to tell a patient not to do something if they really can't afford to do it right. So maybe they just have to remove a tooth for now, one tooth, you know, or maybe they have to do 10 restorative operative procedures, no crowns, and eliminate the one tooth that brought them in if it's painful, if that's what I think's best given their budget. I mean, maybe this isn't your world, but it's been my world for almost 4 decades. You know, dealing with patients that have less money than they actually need cannot be unique to me. So that's the 4 parameters. New patients, there may even be 5 I'm going to add. New patients with need, a clinician with a wide range of skills, because I'm not referring out a lot of things because I know how to do a lot of procedures. Patients that can have the affordability of what you're recommending, and you having ways to make it affordable, i.e. Care Credit, Green Sky Lending Club. But you also have to have a patient. And part of this comes from you. Part of this comes from really working on your communication skills. I mean, looking people in the eye, appropriately touching a shoulder or a hand or something to convey warmth. You know, saying the truth, having a significant other in the room. That patient I referred to earlier in this podcast had her father in the room. And he had a case by me quite a few years ago, a fairly large case. You know, so this is how it all works. But it's up to you to show the value. You know, that being said, I've had doctors, physicians come to me for, you know, the proverbial, I have a toothache. I diagnose more than one asymptomatic periapical abscess that they don't want to treat, you know, or somebody doesn't want to treat their soft tissue problems. They just want me to treat, do a crown or a root canal. I will not do that. You know, that's so, listen, you can get to this. You can. You have to be patient and you have to put in the work. But man, that's it. You know, it's pretty inspiring at this stage of my career to have that kind of practice. So I told you I would talk about many things tonight. And so far I've talked about one stinking slide. It's on my view box in front of you. So, and I'm into 23 minutes already. Let me talk about how to get things done real quick. You need 2 meetings. The morning meeting I went over at my last podcast. And you always have to have a morning meeting. And you know, one of the things that I think a lot of my colleagues abandon when they're in a bad mood or the office is in a slump because they're not in the mood to do it is the morning meeting. The morning meeting, you will never, ever have a better day without a morning meeting. I don't give a darn. That was a combination of damn and darn. I don't give a darn if it's 7 minutes long. You don't have to have a 30-minute meeting. It's about, will the day work? You know, do you have to move any patients around because the schedule looks like you can't accommodate it? You took an emergency of a very important VIP patient over the phone when you walked in Monday morning. You have to make accommodations. Will the day work? You know, are people confirmed that need to be hard confirmed? I'm talking hygiene patients, whatever. Do you know where you're at with your cases? I mean, we went over a lot of this in the last podcast. So, but you also need a monthly meeting. And the monthly meeting is where you make organizational changes. And I'm going to tell you something. It's a really hard meeting for a lot of you to embrace, and I understand why. Because, you're asking your staff to sit down for an hour, sometimes longer. You're paying them. So I'll get to all this in a second. And you're not producing at that moment. It's a really hard pill for a lot of my colleagues to swallow. I have had a pretty good run. Out of my 38 years, I had 29 consecutive years of increased growth and profitability. Think about that for a minute. Just add 29 years to 2019 and think that you had every year in a row to 2038 that you knew. Is that even the right math? Yeah, I think it is. That was going to be better than the year before. And that's a really hard record to maintain. I'm telling you that because it dropped in 2009. Those of you that had practiced back then know that we had a major recession. I had beat 4 recessions prior from 1980 to 2009. I thought I was recession proof. I'm not kidding. When everybody else went down in those years, and I don't remember all the years in particular, we went up. But not in 2009. I went down, and I went down 3 years in a row. The reason I'm saying this to you is the way I came out of it in 2012 is I didn't have just a monthly meeting. I had a meeting every 2 weeks to reassess everything we did. Our recall system, getting patients back in for recare, how we handled new patients, my case presentations, everything, our quality of work. And that year, my gross revenues went up $700,000, and they've been up ever since. So I've had 3 years of my whole career that were down. They were consecutive, and I turned it around by having 2 monthly meetings. Now, you have to pay your team and you have to have it in the beginning of the day. That's my opinion, because I tried everything else. First of all, I tried to convince them that it was for the good of the organization, and they didn't need to. They needed to do things that didn't always involve getting paid, and that just doesn't work. Number 2, I tried to do it after work, and the schedules. You're in a profession where it's not always predictable, so that didn't work either. So that's why we started having it at the beginning of the day. Number 3 is different than it used to be. I used to have my entire team there. So I paid, picture this, 18 to 21 staff members in a room, and there's no way they were all engaged. You have to have a set agenda written, like as if you were a member of a civic club, like the Lions Club, the Kiwanis Club, the Rotary Club. You do have to run it that way, because otherwise it can turn into a witching session where everybody just complains. That is not what those meetings are for. You want to complain? That's a private thing to do to the boss or to the office manager. But not at these meetings. They're increase productivity, improve morale, reduce overhead, improve the quality of the organization. That's what they're for. So what happens is you have to get everybody on board and have a set person in the office that they go to, that you want this on the next agenda or the agenda after that if it's possible. That's how you do it. A written agenda that literally everybody gets before the meeting. And by the way, all the meetings are pre-printed. So you can't decide because you're having a bad January that you're going to throw an office meeting on January the 27th, and because you're compelled to do that. You have to be patient, look ahead, pick the days. I think we had them on Thursday mornings. We still do. It changes sometimes. And you have to publish them in a place everybody can see them so there's not excuses. Oh, I needed to be off that day. Whether you need all the team members there or not, depends on your team. I would say, most offices do not have 100% engagement of the team. Now, let's say that you decided to have 6 out of 10 members at every meeting. Remember, you're paying them to be there. And 2 complain to you out of the other. 2 might be relieved, by the way. that they're not part of it. But maybe maybe you misread somebody and they complain and say, I want to be a part of that. Well, then that's great. Put them in the meeting and, get feedback from everybody, because you also have to set things in motion. That's what a leader does, and be in charge. Say, okay, this is what I expect to hear by the next meeting. Because the things that you're going to be looking at, the time we spent led to dropping debilitating third-party insurance. So you might need a meeting. So let me just take that one, just for that. So how do you do that? Well, you first go to your insurance department and you have them lay out very graphically, literally graphically, all the insurances that you presently take and all the major and minor procedures you want to discuss: scaling, root plating, crowns, dentures, partials, implants, extractions. And you have you compare what you're getting paid. I think most of you haven't done that. And all what happens to some of you is you're going to get a check from Concordia every month, and it averages $3,500 in your office for that one insurance, and you don't want to give that up, but you have to look at it, because you might really almost be, or literally be, losing money on some of these. And that's what you do. It would be really unwise to just stop on Monday and say you're not taking any insurance. If you're taking it now, what you have to do is assess a whole meeting to that. That may have to be a 90-minute meeting. Okay? We also addressed ways to improve morale. That's something I did at my last meeting. I asked the team, I said, what would you like to see in 2019 that would make you happier than you are now? Things like that. Launching a Facebook social media campaign. Starting a new community project. Giving back to your community. God, we have so much to talk about, guys. I think these are going to go on for quite a while unless none of you listen to me. So these are, or how do you improve cash flow? How do we change protocols on our new patient experience so we can get a comprehensive exam, so we can get the significant other at the first visit, so we can improve our verbiage and language and whole experience to get to yes more often. I think I'm running out of a voice here. I'm at 32 minutes. I think this was a good one. I hope it was to you. Dr. Rasner at AOL. Give me feedback on YouTube if you're making remarks. And I feel like I'm getting to know you. It's kind of so weird, even though I can't see you. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next week on The Lionhearted.